Good afternoon, New York, and the rest of our listeners around the globe. My name is June Stoyer, and I'm the host of the Organic View Radio Show. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Zune, and you can also visit our website at www.theorganicview.com. If you'd like to be on the show or would like to find out about sponsorship opportunities, please contact us at questions@theorganicview.com. Today's show is sponsored by ramvpn.com, the leading provider of next-generation online anonymity and VPN security solutions. Their architecture is unique, tamper-safe, and 100% guaranteed. They even accept Bitcoin. Listeners of the Organic View Radio Show can receive a 15% discount in 3-month and 6-month personal plans by using the coupon code ORGVIEW. That's ORGVIEW. For more promotional offers, please visit our website at www.theorganicview.com. Also, don't forget to check out our contest section on our website for your chance to win one of our cool prizes. For more information, please visit www.theorganicview.com/contest. Almost a year ago, a presidential memorandum was issued in June requesting that all federal agencies work together to develop a cohesive plan for pollinator protection. Recently, it was reported that just over 40% of U.S. colonies had to be replaced last year, which is rather interesting considering that commercial beekeepers reported losses approaching 90% over the course of the year. Has EPA and USDA created a resolution for protecting pollinators? As we continue our special series called The Neonicotinoid View, my special guest co-host, Colorado beekeeper Tom Theobald, and I are going to talk to Michelle Colopy, who's the program director of the Pollinator Stewardship Council. So first, I would like to welcome to the show Tom Theobald. How's the weather, Tom?
Hello, June, and hello, Michelle, from the foothills of the Rocky. We've had a beautiful spring day, and I hived a swarm of bees just down the road within the past hour.
Oh. Tom, I have to say, so many of our listeners are really enjoying your weather reports, and I think that you might have missed an entire career in giving these reports throughout your whole life. I mean...
Well, it's not too late. I've been a beekeeper, now I can be a weatherman.
There you go. And I'd like to welcome to the show Michelle Colopy, who is the program director of the Pollinator Stewardship Council. Good afternoon, Michelle.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to talk to you and your listeners.
Michelle, can you explain to our listeners exactly what the Pollinator Stewardship Council is and how you got involved with them?
Well, the Pollinator Stewardship Council is a nonprofit organization of beekeepers for beekeepers. So we are one of the few nonprofits advocating on the issue about the impact of pesticides upon pollinators, and we are a group of beekeepers. So we certainly have that personal knowledge of the impact of pesticides upon our honeybees. We are a nonprofit organization that focuses on education, advocacy, and collaboration with state and local beekeeping groups. We work on, one of the projects we're starting to work on now is the managed pollinator plans at the state level. So we are advising and providing information and research to state groups as they start to develop their state pollinator protection plans. We started the very first thing when the organization began, collecting reports on bee kills, because so many beekeepers had gotten frustrated and fed up with reporting their bee losses that we realized that data was very important, but that at the same time the system was making it difficult for beekeepers to report their bee kills. So we started taking on that and assisting beekeepers in reporting their bee kills. We recently collaborated with the Honeybee Health Coalition and created a quick guide to reporting pesticide-related bee kills. It is available in Bee Culture magazine. It came out in the May issue. You can also order a laminated quick guide from us at the Pollinator Stewardship Council. You can go to our website at www.pollinatorstewardship.org and request a laminated copy of the quick guide. So we do also then projects in support of local and state beekeeping groups, whether it's helping them write grants, direct them toward funding for their own pollinator supportive projects they want to do in their states, as well as collaborate with them. One of the projects I'm doing right now is collaborating with Ohio State beekeepers and Medina County Beekeepers Association on creating pollinator habitat on corporate land. So we are here to help with local solutions to local problems, as well as educate the state and local beekeepers about the national issues that all of the beekeepers are experiencing.
You are definitely one busy bee.
I am, yes.
Have to make a lame joke every now and then, see if people are listening. Right. Michelle, can you talk about the recent hearing that reviewed the federal, this whole memorandum, which it's almost a year now, and it's great that they're acknowledging this memorandum, which was supposed to be an urgent matter, but almost a year later, I guess, no, it's what you pay for.
Well, certainly. There was a hearing yesterday from the House Agriculture Committee, and it was one of their subcommittees, the Biotechnology, Horticulture, and Research Subcommittee. And it was a hearing, actually, that was mentioned, I believe the notice was late last Friday. So it was very sudden. And I realize Congress is busy, but beekeepers are busy as well. So it was rather difficult. I know one of my board members did actually attend the meeting. There was another gentleman from American Beekeeping Federation who was in Washington, and he was able to attend the hearing. So I listened to it online. And I was very thankful for Representative Suzanne Delbene, who did make it quite clear. Interesting, we're having this agriculture subcommittee hearing, but there's not a beekeeper in the room to testify. It was simply EPA and USDA. And so I was very thankful that she mentioned that it's important that we get all of the stakeholders when we try to discuss pollinator issues, and certainly beekeepers are the main stakeholder in that issue. But it was really a hearing that tried to, I feel, make light of or make a bigger issue about a letter the USDA submitted for public comments concerning a research study that EPA had done about the benefit of seed treatments on soybean seeds. Now, the purpose of letters into the public comment, it's on the public record. But somehow the committee thought that the two agencies were not working together. Personally, I have not seen that they butt heads. They work together on a variety of issues. And certainly, though, everyone is quite anxious as to where the White House Task Force Pollinator Health Report is in its stage. It was supposed to have been done in December of last year. That was the original plan that the President's memorandum laid out, but it did not come out. Then it was supposed to come out in February. Then I think it was supposed to come out around Earth Day. So now we are all hopeful it'll be around and published at National Pollinator Week. But I think the delay in the task force report points out, and that the people involved in developing the task force report are realizing truly how difficult the issue is to try to improve pollinator health. Because it is not one thing, and I think many of us have come to that conclusion. I know, Tom and I have a long time ago. CCD is just a nice sound bite, and there is not one thing causing pollinator losses. Certainly, some things impact greater than others, but it really is pests, pathogens, pesticides, and poor forage. Now, from my viewpoint at the Pollinator Stewardship Council, pesticides are impacting two parts of that. If we could reduce the pesticide use on crops and flowers when they're blooming, that would help the nutrition of honeybees and native pollinators. Because if we would take off that toxic load onto the food source, the blooming crops and weeds and flowers, then bees would have a healthier food source. If we reduced the prophylactic use of pesticides in agriculture, as well as in some cities. I like to always make it clear that the pesticide impact is not just in agriculture. It is in our cities as well. It does affect our backyard beekeepers because they suffer from lawn chemical use as well as mosquito control programs in the cities. I know Massachusetts and Texas last year had some major bee kills from a variety of beekeepers because of mosquito control products that were applied really at the wrong time. And while they did it per the label, based on the exception of the public health emergency, they still applied the product during the day on a broad scale, so it really did not kill any mosquitoes. It just killed honeybees. So I think that the hearing, was good. It just reminded people that we're all waiting for the White House task force report. And again, I was very thankful that Representative Del Bene did mention we need to have all of the stakeholders when we hold hearings about pollinator health. There needs to be more than just one group of people. It can't just be scientists. It can't just be the regulators. It's got to be all the stakeholders involved, and beekeepers especially.
Having said that, I know Tom is just waiting to respond to that. So, Tom.
Well, it's just so frustrating, these hearings where they try to justify what they've done. I'm trying to keep an open mind, but along with many other beekeepers, I've become more and more cynical over time, and I'm afraid that what we're dealing with is a carefully constructed organized crime. I mean, we have corporations that are in control of the regulatory agencies. The USDA is the Research and Development Division of the corporations, and the EPA has become the marketing agent. I don't know. The presidential proclamation called for answers, and they're supposed to have been delivered 5 months ago. I heard just this morning that this is going to be delivered next week, and what we're going to find, I'm afraid, is more evasion, more smoke screen, more diversion, more lies. These people are very accomplished liars, and it's just one lie after another. It's hard to understand how we confront that sort of a situation. I also have a concern about habitat improvement, because I think that what many people have failed to grasp is the enormity of the poisoning that has gone on, the environmental poisoning. We're talking about the toxic equivalent of billions and billions of pounds of DDT. It's contaminated the soil, it's contaminated the water, and I question whether we're creating habitat if we don't know what the level of contamination is. So I'm very, very frustrated, and I don't expect much from anyone. The beekeepers are out here dying, and these people are fiddling.
And I hear that frustration from so many beekeepers around the country, Tom, and certainly that is my frustration. I try to be the middle ground on occasion for understanding the regulators' difficult position. At the same time, I am a person who believes in standing up for the truth, and I would never want someone suppressing my research. If they did, I would call them out on the carpet. I would go very public, but others are concerned about their job. Like recent concerns came up at USDA that there were 10 scientists who said their research was being suppressed. And certainly those things do not promote support and belief in the governmental process and the regulatory process. And I agree with you on that. And I think even with the Bee Informed Partnership survey that came out talking about colony losses, we are continuing, as the expression goes, to strain at gnats and swallow camels. So we are counting hives. Okay, so we again count how many died and how many lived. But we are never asking the next question, why did the ones die and why are the others still alive? Ones dying, especially when the high death rates are in the southern states where it's warm, it is certainly not death by freezing. It's not what my bees went through in northeast Ohio, which was a couple of feet of snow and below zero temperatures for a couple of weeks. So when you take your bees down south to winter, it's not if it's not the weather killing them, if it's not the low temperatures, then what is it? And research has shown us that the pesticide loads in our hives is tremendous. And I wrote an article in last November in the Bee Culture magazine about pesticides wintering in hives. And when the research shows up to 53 different pesticides residing in a hive, how can we expect bees to survive? How? Because that load is so tremendous. 53 different pesticides, and it's in the pollen, and it's in their honey, and it's in the wax, and the pesticides linger.
I had a communication with someone who recently attended one of these governmental hearings, and afterward raised the question about the pesticide load and the neonicotinoids, and this was a USDA biologist, and the answer was that they're going to develop self-pollinating plants and robotic bees. Now, the philosophy behind that is that this is kind of a scorched earth agriculture. We'll kill everything except a few commodity crops, and we'll just replace whatever we need to with some technological innovation. This is insane, the course that we're on.
It's all that money.
It is. Yeah, it is. And it goes back to, and it's educating the populace. And yes, that is the slowest thing and the hardest thing to do. But while beekeepers know there is a problem with their bees, and they realize they are the canary in the coal mine telling us things are wrong in the ecosystem, we must make change. One, sadly, change is hard. Personally, I think that's just an excuse, because we can make change, but all of us have to agree to it. And I think still within agriculture, there are almost the three separate silos. I mean, it's the applicator, it's the farmer, and the beekeeper, and they still have trouble communicating with each other, which is why one of the things we are doing at Pollinator Stewardship Council is we're working with some of the other members of the Honeybee Health Coalition to create this bee understanding project, just trying to increase communication. And I realize that's not going to solve the issue, because we need to improve communication in many venues, whether it's to regulators, to state apiarists, from beekeeper to beekeeper, beekeeper to neighbor who doesn't have bees but benefits from them. And I think within the beekeeping world, that greater education is just not there. We do not communicate it enough to folks. We think they should know, but there are still people who think their food comes from the grocery store and not from a farm field. So that educational aspect is just, it's always the weakest link in any type of change and awareness. Whether it was with the tobacco industry and realizing cigarettes are bad, whether it was with predatory lending and the affordable housing crisis that we had, it takes education. And it takes a tremendous amount of patience, and I can hear that, Tom, your patience is gone, and I can understand that. You've been fighting this fight much longer than I have.
My patience is gone, Michelle, and I think that it has to be, because what we're dealing with is a high level of corruption. We've lost control of our society. We have no government anymore. The corporations have taken over control of everything. These people are consummate liars. If reality doesn't suit them, they just make something up. They have control of the media. They get the message out. And unfortunately, many people don't have the context in which to understand this, and they believe these lies. These people are taking us down a horrible course.
Well, but we do have to continue to fight, because if we give up, then they have won. We have to fight and continue to fight, because as what's quoted in a children's book, I mean, you'll never eradicate, in a sense, evil altogether. And I'm not saying that corporations are per se evil, but having worked in affordable housing and predatory lending issues, yes, some corporations are evil. But when it does come down to greed as opposed to the common good, we have to, as the beekeepers, represent that common good, because beekeepers are there pollinating the backyard gardens, they're pollinating the wildlands, they're pollinating a third of our food supply. And while the beekeeper may be on a zucchini field, the field next to him may be corn, but that corn farmer needs to be a good farming neighbor to the zucchini farmer, because those bees are pollinating that guy's crop and increasing his crop yield. So it's about making sure people understand we're not here to beat everybody up. We are all here to work together for our food supply. And we have to start thinking about it. I was at a garden meeting yesterday talking to master gardeners, and somebody has some apple trees, and she was talking about pesticides, and she said every February they just always spray. And I said, why? and she was dumbfounded by my question. She did not realize, I guess I should think about why I'm spraying. But we get into those modes of habit, and unless somebody does say to them, why are you doing that? Why would you believe a salesman who just says you're supposed to buy this product and apply it? Why, if I have no pest? Which goes back to integrated pest management, which I think is a concept full of questions. And some people don't like questions. They like a given. However, that's not the real world.
Well, we do have somebody who has a bunch of answers, and that's Mr. Graham White, who's calling in from Scotland. So I would like to introduce him into the conversation. Good evening, Graham.
Good evening from Scotland, June.
Always a pleasure to have you call in, Graham.
I think I share Tom's sense of extreme frustration about everything that's going on at the moment. This recent report from the Be Informed Partnership and so on is all part of a large, vast public relations propaganda package in which the two main people who were quoted in the United States press yesterday were Dennis Van Engelsdorp and Jeff Pettis, who 4 years ago were interviewed at Apimondia in Italy, where they announced that they had found the golden chalice. They had solved the mystery of CCD. And they had, in fact, they deserved a Nobel Prize for what they had discovered. They had discovered that if they fed bees infinitesimal amounts, and I mean barely measurable amounts of neonicotinoids, the bees died of nosema some months later. And this was mirrored by a similar finding in France, where a researcher called Luc Belzunce had found 10 years earlier that he could not find a lower dose at which bee colonies did not collapse. Now, shortly after Pettis and Engelsdorp published this, and it was on in the media and on television, Jeff Pettis was made to fly to Britain, where he gave a speech in front of the House of Lords and on Channel 4 television, where he said his own research had found this, but it was completely irrelevant and it didn't mean anything in the real world. And shortly after that, Dennis Van Engelsdorp was given $5 million to play with to set up the Be Informed Partnership. And ever since that time, neither of them have barely ever mentioned the word pesticides. They are now part of the church of multiple factors. It's not pesticides, it's habitat loss, wildflower foraging, absence, and other factors, global warming, whatever, and way down the list, pesticides. This is all complete, boo-hunkum or whatever you call it over there. We have known what's been killing the bees since 1998. How long ago is that? 24 years ago. The French lost 1 million colonies when Bayer introduced imidacloprid on sunflowers in France in 1998, and the French did independent studies. They proved it, and they banned the neonicotinoids in France in 2000. That's 15 years ago. And everybody knows that's what's been going on. Everybody in every university in the world, every regulatory agency in Britain and America has known this from the beginning. What we have been seeing is not a battle of scientific papers or a debate. What we are witnessing is a massive multi-million propaganda campaign to keep these poisons on the market on 200 million acres of American crops as long as the profits are rolling in. It's exactly parallel to what the tobacco industry did in the 1960s, when millions of people have died from lung cancer, and the American, a lot of the medical establishment went on through the 60s and 70s saying, oh, it's not tobacco. Tobacco's good for you. It's improves your health, and so on and so on. So it's extremely frustrating. The problem is that once you get presidential commissions involved, they've seduced the American beekeeping establishment into who naturally think they have to be part of the discussion. They have to be at the table. But the reality is, when you sit down at the table with Monsanto, with Bayer, Syngenta, the Keystone Foundation, and these other giant players, you are going to get squashed like a dead bee. And they are being squashed like a dead bee. And the terrifying thing is, people think that it's a battle against the neonicotinoids. It's not. It's a battle against a global agricultural system which has a 30 to 50 year set of goals and timescales in which the American corporations, largely American, but German as well, they intend to invade every country on earth and conquer its agriculture with these technologies. GM coupled with neonicotinoids and systemic pesticides, coupled with systemic herbicides. And if you don't like it, we'll send the Marine Corps. That's it. So what I want to know, and maybe Michelle can enlighten us, is where is the resistance from the American beekeeping community?
Wow, that's a powerful question, and I hear and certainly respect all the work you're doing in the UK and in Europe, Graham. It is a difficult situation for the National Beekeeping Associations. I'm going to step out on a. Let me actually. That's okay. Let me actually step out on a big limb, and certainly as groups try to fight the issue, we have the environmental groups out there doing their work, and I think they're doing some wonderful work on behalf of bees, on behalf of pollinators, whether it's native-only pollinators they're fighting for, or for honeybees as well. But I do agree there are times when it seems like we just go to another coalition meeting, another committee meeting, and yes, some of it is let's try and kill off the industry by committee meetings. And so defeat them by committee meetings that nothing will get done. But we do have to be there to be part of the conversation and find out the direction they're going with things, even with the state pollinator plans, which we don't feel will solve any issue whatsoever if all I get from it is that beekeepers at the state and local level get out of their bee yards and get involved and stand up for themselves. That's what I see the value of those state pollinator plans, is beekeepers will come together. And that's where we have been weak, is the beekeeping industry is not united enough like they were in France when they marched on Parliament. Let's hear it for the French. But
can I just say, it's no better here in the UK. Our two main national beekeeping associations voted against supporting the European ban on neonicotinoids. Now explain that one to me. This is like 2 years ago. But let me just say, in Germany they marched on the Bundestag, they burned hives in front of Parliament. France brought Paris to a standstill. Britain has done virtually nothing. We're worse than America, if anything. But this is a fight to the death. And there is not, apart from Tom Theobald and one or two others, who speak out, Jeff Anderson, Steve Ellis speak out and so on, why is the beekeeping industry and the beekeeping hobby leaving it to the Center for Food Safety and Beyond Pesticides to do their fighting for them? Because my view is until you have beekeepers marching on the White House and saying this is the end, that you have to do something now, we're not going to get anywhere, because we're just going to get 10 more years of propaganda, meetings, and flim-flam. Honestly.
Graham, I think it's going to be something even more profound than that. I think it's got to get to the point where it becomes personal for every single citizen. And I'm not just talking about the United States. I'm talking about globally, where when there are tremendous food shortages, when people start fighting over how they're going to feed themselves and their families, that is when people are going to start responding, because that's how it is with everything. Unless it becomes personal, then people start to respond. Unfortunately, folks, we are out of time. So I just quickly want to say thank you so much, Graham, for calling in. It's always lovely to have you.
Thank you.
And
thank Michelle.
Your opinion. And Michelle, thank you so much. Could you just quickly give our listeners your organization's website?
Yes, the Pollinator Stewardship Council is at www.pollinatorstewardship.org.
Thank you. And Tom, once again, great weather report. Always great to have your input.
June. I'm going to go pick up my swarm.
And folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Please check out the companion article, which will be available at theorganicview.com, where you can also find out information about our monthly contest. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.